What's up, everybody? Welcome to Completely Arbortrary, the podcast about trees and other related topics. My name is Alex Crowson, and as always, I'm alongside my co-host.
I'm Casey Clapp, and I have just nothing but praise for how you started this show today, Alex.
Wow, what in particular?
I almost didn't even know it started. You just were casually talking, paused for a second, then casually said, "Welcome to Completely Arbortrary."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I feel relaxed. I feel like brought into this.
Yeah, well, I'm going for a bit of an understated thing today.
Oh, yeah, that's why you're wearing mauve.
That's right. I'm head to toe in mauve.
Usually you're bright pastels like pink and orange.
I was a real beige boy today. I had beige shoes, a beige sweatshirt, and beige sweat shorts.
Did you walk like on a beige sand dune too?
Unfortunately, no. I walked on the gray, gritty streets of Portland.
Yeah, they're pretty gritty right now. We just got some wet rain today.
Yes.
I was out in it. My feet got quite moisted.
I don't think my neighborhood got the wet rain.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was localized then.
Yeah, it must have been like one single wet rain cloud.
Yeah, just one cloud. Everything else around it was dry rain. Barely even did it.
I see.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day, though.
Well, Casey, right before we started recording,
yeah,
you were doing a little something over there on the couch.
Oh, yes, I was.
Frantically inputting credit card numbers.
Yep.
And clicking buttons on your laptop. I've never seen you more concentrated.
I'm sorry.
You
not once.
You were buying tickets.
Yes.
To a concert.
I was.
And who are you going to see perform live, Casey?
I'm going to see Dr. Dog.
DRDOG.
That's right. One of my top favorite bands, Alex, as you know.
Yes.
I wrangled you into seeing them live with me a couple years ago.
Yes.
You seem to like it, except I don't think you moved once.
I was having a rough night.
Yeah.
Physically. My back was on fire.
I remember that. And I was like, come on, dance. And you were just like, I like it just fine.
I don't know if you ever coerced me to dance.
Yeah, I guess I just thought that because I was having a good time.
I will say that whole night I was worried about like an active shooter situation.
Oh God.
Isn't that fucked up?
That is a little bit, it's a harsh way to go around live your life.
Yeah.
But,
well, this is general anxiety disorder, Casey.
I see.
Also that venue, where was that? The Roseland?
Was that? I think it was.
Yeah. I don't like that place. The feng shui doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I see. That's not unreasonable.
Yeah. Casey, we have a fun tree to discuss today.
Yes, we do,
now,
Alex.
It's a bit of a tease, Casey.
Isn't it?
Can I bring up something from the origins of our podcast?
Yes, please do. Can we make that like that harp sound?
Yes, I'll insert it here.
Oh, you didn't think I was good enough? My voice, my sound effect.
Yours sounded like bubbles in water.
Yeah, like a harp. Yeah.
In our very early days on our Instagram account, we had a follower named, what was their name, Casey?
I Love Larch or something.
I Love Tamarack, I think
something
it was.
Something like that.
Now, this person was, in all meanings of the word, a zealot. This person would not leave us alone. They wanted to hear an episode on larches so bad.
That's true.
They left aggressive, not even like kind messages and comments on every post telling us that we're fucking up by not making a larch episode.
Yeah, that's true.
That person eventually stopped following us. Casey.
Oh, did they? Oh, no. We wronged him. They took it very seriously.
Yeah, and here we are doing an episode on a larch.
You know what?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is us casting our net back out there and be like, come back.
Yes, please. Although, I will say, it's not the larch they requested.
Well, it's a bait and switch is what we're doing here.
It is. The person who in question was all about the American larch, the tamarack.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Today, Casey, we are discussing the European larch.
The European larch.
Larix decidua.
That is it. Decidua. I appreciate how you said that. I usually say decidua, but I don't know which is more right. Which is more perfect.
Sure. I was taking the pronunciation from deciduous, of course.
Ah, yes.
But I guess you could say decidua.
Decidua. Yeah. I feel like that sounds wrong.
Yeah.
So now I feel more wrong. Decidua. I think you're right.
Well, Casey, today we're talking about the European larch.
That's right, we are. It's a deciduous conifer. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Well, I guess it kind of came out when we said decidua.
Yeah.
So I figured that it was old news now.
Maybe I should have pretended that I didn't know that.
No, Alex, this is a podcast that's real.
That's right. We're all about integrity. Last week, we were in South America, more specifically Brazil, I think we landed on.
South, Southern, Central, yeah.
Yeah, South, Southern, Central, South America.
That's right.
And today, we are hopping on over to Northern Europe.
That's right. Kind of Central Europe, actually. Central,
Okay.
Southern Europe. In the same region. Central, Southern, Southern, Eastern Europe.
Yes.
The Alps. The Alp Mountains.
Oh, okay.
Which is where the word alpine comes from, to my understanding.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because if it's alpine, then it's like the Alps.
Well, on our world tour, Casey, we've been traveling to each new place in a different form of travel. Transportation,
Yeah.
thank you. And I have a suggestion for today's transportation.
All right, hit it with me.
Can we take a water slide?
A water slide?
Yeah.
So do we like go down it and then have to move it over and then go down it again? Or like, is this a long one?
I think this is just a really long water slide.
Ooh, do we have to go all the way, like way high up? Like,
You know what would be even better is like, in a cartoon when they're on like a train track, but the tracks run out, so they have to like grab the last piece of the track and put it in front of the cart.
yeah,
and
okay.
do that over and over.
That's what we're doing.
Let's do that with the water slide.
All right, perfect. That sounds great.
Yeah,
Can we make it a spiral one or have some spirals in it?
100%.
Cool. I kind of also, for some reason, wanted to go underwater for a second.
Yes,
An underwater water slide?
we're crossing an ocean. Why not?
Yeah, might as well. Is that just a current? I feel like that's just a current.
A current?
Yeah, like a current in an ocean would just be an underwater
water slide.
Yeah. You remember in like Finding Nemo when they're like, jump on the
Yes.
current, bro, and then the turtles just like sailed?
Well, it's a long trip. Maybe we can take part current and part water slide. Well, Casey, here we are in a beautiful larch forest in the Alps. We are positively freezing because we forgot to pack winter clothes.
Yeah, it's quite cold up here.
Yeah. And we look up and we see all these beautiful larch trees.
Mm-hmm.
Casey, what do we see and what do we feel? Let's talk Larix decidua.
Great question. Great intro. Alex, we get off of our water slide. We slide up to the top of these gigantic mountains. We are in a normal, as like quintessential as possible alpine forest. So you're going to see a lot of different pine trees, like Scotch pine. You're going to see maybe a little bit of Norway spruce. You're going to see other southern species of pine trees. And you're going to see this one really beautiful larch tree, which is a deciduous conifer. So the branches, depending on the time of year, are covered in needles that are either this really gorgeous like lime green, like very much a soft looking green. The needles themselves are soft. So it looks like this kind of like very pillowy kind of cover, but it also somewhat like see-through is the way I would describe them.
Interesting.
Where like you look into it and you're like, I think I can see every single branch, but they're still covered by like this veil of green needles, but you can still like see through the tree.
Okay.
And then if it's in the fall time or like early winter, they'll be completely bright yellow because they turn a gorgeous yellow and fall off. Just like every other deciduous kind of tree that you can think of, they have that beautiful fall color.
Now, Casey, just for the tree noobs among us, I want to make a distinction between the four kind of corners of tree seasonality.
Ah, sure, okay.
So conifer means that it grows cones. That's
Yes, correct.
all. Deciduous means that it loses its leaves in the fall.
Yes.
Or the winter, rather.
Uh-huh. Or just period.
Evergreen means that it does not lose its leaves.
Yep.
And what's the fourth corner there?
The fourth corner would be an evergreen broadleaf.
Broadleaf.
Yes.
Broadleaves are non-needle leaf trees.
Yeah, or the flowering trees would be
Sure.
a better way to kind of make an easier distinction, because there are some flowering plants that have very needle-like leaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you might think, like I did, is that an evergreen tree is a conifer and a conifer is an evergreen.
Yeah.
But there are conifers that grow cones that also lose their leaves, in this case needles.
Exactly.
Like the larch.
Precisely. Like earlier in the last season, we talked about the Dawn Redwood, another great quintessential example of this.
Yes.
So you are precisely correct. So half the year, you'll have just this one naked-looking tree that's just growing up there, and it has no leaves on it, and they are just these, tall things, and you're like, well, that's a dead tree. It's like, nope, it's not a dead tree. It just looks like a dead tree, but it's dormant, it's chilling, it's taking it easy.
Right.
But when it does lose the leaves, you'll be able to see all this really great bark. Its bark is very thick and furrowed, very textured, I would say. So it's one of those kinds of trees that as it grows up and it gets bigger and bigger, the bark just constantly kind of reforms and you get new stretch marks and these new lines, and these things look like they are constantly really tough and hard scrabble kind of plants.
Cool.
Which makes sense with their growing way up high in super intense elevations.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is that their needles, though they are conifers, just like everyone expects, they are more similar to a cedar in this regard, in that their little needles will come out in amounts of 20 to 40 per a little tiny shoot peg.
Wow.
And so you can tell it's a larch, even if it's completely devoid of needles. In the middle of winter, you're walking around well, is that a dead tree or is it a larch? Potentially still dead, but probably not.
Yeah.
You look at it and you'll find all these little peg shoots that are all over the branches, and then each year those will pop out and bloop, have a whole new grouping of needles. So you have it's similar like that. I guess also the ginkgo does a similar thing where it just has these little tiny shoots with all the leaves that usually come out of that.
Okay.
True cedars do that as well.
Okay.
So they're really just interesting trees. They have all these fantastic little characteristics from, a lot of different trees, and they kind of mash them all together with this really interesting habit.
Casey, let's talk cones.
Let us always.
Love talking cones.
It's the best thing, isn't it?
The larch cones are some of my favorite.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I did some research today. This is a new development.
I love it. Every time you do research. This just in. Alex Crowson does research on trees. For more, we go to Alex Crowson. Alex, what's going on out there?
Well, I looked at the Wikipedia page and found a gallery of images of these cones.
My God.
Casey, they're gorgeous.
Aren't they the best?
And they're so varied in their morphology through their lifetime.
Look at you. Are you giving a lecture at a college right now?
Who am I, Casey Clapp?
Oh my gosh, you're annoying. Why does anyone listen to me? I'm just kidding. That was self-deprecating, but at the same time it deprecated
We
you.
don't really allow that unless it's me.
Unless it's Alex, in which case I just throw things at you.
Yeah. Well, the cones, they go through a life cycle.
Yeah.
They start out looking like tropical flowers.
They do. I'm so happy you're bringing this up.
Incredible. And they're bright red.
It's this purplish red. It almost, to me, it kind of looks like, I don't know, like a sea creature that's just coming out of its shell a little bit.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. I mean, they really look they look almost, I also they remind me of a pineapple.
Yeah, totally.
Flower or whatever.
Their colors are just so insane.
Yeah, gorgeous. And then they churn into this sort of intermediate state, and then eventually they end up as their beautiful woody selves.
Woody cones. I have one tattooed on my arm, Alex.
That's
right. I love it. It's in a very prominent location. It's about 2 times as big as it normally is, but I liked it because I liked sometimes in this small cone. I want it to be zoomed in so I can see the nuances of it all.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. And they also when they're upright on the branches, so they just kind of grow all straight up like little. I don't know. They just always point straight up, and I always think that looks so interesting when the rest of the branches are bending down for whatever reason or swooping. And this tree is known to have kind of a drooping kind of habit, and then all these cones pointing straight up. It almost looks looks strange.
And it's funny you mentioned that the needles are cedar-like earlier because cedar cones also grow straight up.
Yes, they do. And then those disappear, which is a good way to tell them apart. If you're well, it's in the middle of summer. I see these all these little growths on these 2 trees, and they all come out from these little pegs. Is it a cedar or is it a larch? You can just wait till fall and see that one will lose its leaves, the other will stay evergreen.
Yeah.
Or you can watch those cones where the cedar cones, ironically enough, are deciduous or dehiscent, where they will fall apart piece by piece. The larch cone will not. It'll stay right there and be really tight on the branch. In fact, it'll stay on the branch for years, even as the branch or the little twig itself will fall off and get shed for whatever reason. That cone will still be there.
Wow, really? Will it grow grow new cones while the old cones are still there?
Oh, yeah, but it grows them further down the line. So it's not like one cone grows from the same spot. It's like there is a cone, it grows there, and when it's done, it just chills.
That's great.
Yeah.
Casey, do the needles pass the handshake test?
Oh, they pass it in spades. Those
Okay.
little things, they're so nice. Like you can rub your face on them. It's almost like a little brush. They're the nicest.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find one around town and be like, Alex, come over here and rub your face on this tree.
And I will gladly do it.
Oh, I hope so.
Well, Casey, I have a few things I'd like to talk about with this tree.
Alex, I saw that and I want to hear.
Calling this Alex's Trivia. Trivia is a pun from our Facebook group, Casey.
Yes.
the
Please
Completely
join
Arbortrary
it.
Fungal Associates.
Everyone should go. It's at facebook.com.org.edu.
That's right. Type that in exactly.
Free to join, except that you have to be cool. But
Yes.
our standards for cool are low. You just have to be a nice person.
The only price is kindness.
Which is a good price to pay.
Yeah.
It makes everyone a little bit more wealthy.
And it always pays back in dividends. I don't know finances well enough to make a...
And you always get stocks and bonds with it.
Yeah, there you go. Casey, I want to talk about some of the uses, some of the ecology, and the etymology of the word larch.
Yes. All right. Hit me at it.
Okay, so the uses. Okay, Casey, did you know that the wood of the larch is the perfect wood to make yachts?
No, I didn't.
So in a way, it's sort of a bougie, lame wood.
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense though. I can imagine because they're like super decay resistant wood.
That's right.
You can just like have a tree bashed into another tree and it will be fine. It'll just keep on growing and nothing decays it for a long time. Actually, I guess at some point it will decay, but
Yeah, I saw that if it's in direct contact with something else,
Yeah.
it's like vacuum sealed.
it's kind of the same. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. You think about the fact that it's a deciduous conifer growing up in places where all the other trees are super evergreen. And you're like, well, how does that work? It's like, well, they take most of their energy and put it into other things rather than
Right.
keeping these big, insane leaves.
It's very cool.
Yeah. Well, all right. What else we got, Alex?
Well, yeah. So it's particularly, and I'm quoting here, Wikipedia. It's particularly valued for yacht building. The wood used for making yachts has to be free of knots. Obviously,
Well, I don't like to have a knotty yacht.
you don't want a knotty yacht unless you're talking NAUGH.
Oh, in which case.
Hey, the Knotty Yacht.
Yeah.
Casey, I think we found a place to put our Patreon money.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Thanks, everyone, for supporting our yacht club habits.
And the wood used for yacht making can only be obtained from old trees
Oh, of course.
that were pruned when they were young to remove side branches.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you might raise a grove of
Yeah.
these trees specifically for yacht making.
Yes, yeah. I've taught courses on this actually, pruning timber trees for value, because as you do that, the tree, once you cut those branches off, then you have to give the tree a long enough time to close over those wounds, start putting on new layers of wood, and then give it enough time to get big enough to where that new completely surrounded full ring of wood is big enough to actually become a board or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if you do it when the tree's, 20 years old, you're going to have to wait another 40 years before it's actually big enough, because you can't use the center of that tree because that's where all the knots are.
Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so that makes sense. But God, there's a part of me that just hates this. Like, oh, if I have to build a yacht, I must cut down a 900-year-old tree.
I know.
Only the best for my baby.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much anti-yacht.
I
Can we
think so.
say that?
I think I am anti-yacht. I think
Yeah.
that's true. Unless you're like, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be some exception to that. I'm fine with some yacht that, I don't know, does something.
I think when you buy one, you'll be pro yacht.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and then I'll be pro boat shoes too. So that'll be the day.
Old topsider Casey Clapp.
That's right. Give me those sunglasses.
Small larch poles are also widely used for rustic fencing.
Yes.
So I guess if you want to just throw up a quick fence, just use some larch poles.
Yeah, and if you want to make it look like it's been there for 400 years,
Yeah.
then you got it.
There you go. Let's talk about the seeds, and let's talk about birds specifically,
All
Casey.
right, yeah.
The seeds are an important food. The seeds from the larch cone, of course.
Yeah.
Notably, for some birds, notably siskin.
I've never heard of that bird.
Wait for the rest of this list, my man.
Okay.
Lesser red pole, and citral finch.
You just made those words up.
The buds and immature cones are eaten by capercaillie. I don't know how to say that word.
Capercaillie, I think.
Capercaillie.
Is what those are. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, birds are loving the larch, man.
Oh yeah, I've seen these capercaillie. I think I've seen them make funny sounds on a planet Earth or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, really good stuff.
And speaking of capercaillie, a word that sounds very similar, caterpillar. European larch needles are the only known food for caterpillars of the case-bearer moth, Coleophora sibyrilcella.
I think you said that perfectly.
God, I was holding my breath through that whole thing.
I saw that. Are you okay?
No. Its cone scales are used as food by the caterpillars of the tortoise moth.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go.
So this thing's getting eat up, Case.
It's getting eat up, which makes sense because a lot of it, like I said, it's deciduous. They haven't put any effort into stopping this. So they're just kind of like, yeah, go for it. I don't care.
I think that's great.
It is. Honestly, it's one of those things that when you think about trees and like their uses, everyone says, well, habitat value. But they always think of like the big megafauna, like the capercaillie and all these other kinds of birds.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, there's a bunch of other animals that are just as important in like food chains. Like those birds might eat these little caterpillars and things like that.
Right. That's so fascinating that a single tree can like kind of be the center of a habitat in itself.
Yeah, oak trees are famous for that.
We got to talk about that sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, we surely will. There's so many things that we have yet to talk about. It's just exciting as heck.
Isn't it overwhelming?
It is. I was actually doing research on one of them today.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it, though.
Please don't.
I won't. Sorry, everyone.
Well, Casey, let's talk about one of my favorite subjects.
All right.
Etymology.
Oh, I love entomology.
I'm a big etymology fan.
Oh, I said.
Now, you said entomology, which I think is bugs.
Yeah.
I'm talking etymology, which is words. Mm-hmm. Although they're closely related in this instance.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, what's the etymology of entomology?
I think if you try to figure that out, you open a black hole.
Yeah, and then you get sucked in.
Yeah. The English name Larch derives from the Latin larigna.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Named after the ancient settlement.
Do you think that's like lasagna, where it's more like Larigna?
Oh, Larigna.
Larina?
I bet you're right. That's silent G.
Yeah, I don't know.
That rolls into the N.
I like Larigna, though.
Yeah, let's say Larigna.
All right.
Named after the ancient settlement of Larinium. The story of its naming was preserved and written by Vitruvius, who was a first century architect and writer. Roman.
Yes, yeah, I assume so at that time.
So I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this incredibly wordy excerpt.
I think I read this earlier because I was like, "What is he pasting in this document right now?" And I looked at it. I love this kind of wordiness.
Me too.
This is how I write like stories.
Oh yes.
Or scientific articles, and everyone's like, "Please, would you cut that down by 50%?"
In a way, and I mean this with love, it's also a bit how you speak.
Yeah, it totally is. I never press delete. I just keep writing.
You're the Stephen King of dendrologists. Yeah. No delete key. All right, here's from Vitruvius. I might put some medieval Roman music, medieval first century.
I think you should do it. Yeah, you should also put on just a little bit of an accent.
Oh,
whatever feels right.
I may skip the accent because I have trouble with accents in long spurts. You know,
I'm a little bit let down.
Well, what kind of a Roman accent? I don't know how to do that.
Oh yeah, all right. We'll
Italian?
Yeah. All right, you just go for it.
I'm going to read it. It is worthwhile to know how this wood was discovered. The divine Caesar, being with his army in the neighborhood of the Alps, and having ordered the towns to furnish supplies, the inhabitants of a fortified stronghold there called Larinium, trusting in the natural strength of their defenses, refused to obey his command.
Fools.
So Casey.
Hey, I know all about Caesar.
So the general ordered his forces to the assault. In the front gate of this stronghold, there was a tower made of beams of this wood, laid in alternating directions at right angles to each other, like a funeral pyre, and built high, so that they could drive off an attacking party by throwing stakes and stones from the top. When it was observed that they had no other missiles than stakes, and these could not be hurled very far from the wall on account of the weight, orders were given to approach and to throw bundles of brushwood and lighted torches at the outwork. These the soldiers soon got together. The flames soon kindled the brushwood. which lay about that wooden structure and rising towards heaven, made everybody think that the whole pile had fallen. But when the fire had burned itself out and subsided, the tower appeared to view entirely uninjured. Caesar, in amazement, gave orders that they should be surrounded with a palisade built beyond the range of missiles. So the townspeople were frightened into surrendering, and were then asked where that wood came from, which was not harmed by fire. They pointed to trees of the kind under discussion, of which there are a great number in that vicinity. And so, as the stronghold was called Larinium, the wood was called Larch.
There you have it.
Never worked so hard in my life.
It's okay. Take a glass of water. Take a break
I'm gonna
here.
take a little sip of kombucha.
Oh, I love this. So one thing I did note when I was hearing this and reading through it with you is that they did not call it Larch. They called it Larix because that's the old classical term for it, which is why, of course, we use it now in the Greek, in the Roman, Latin binomial.
Yes, of course. Larix.
Yeah, so that's a funny little trick of the translation where they translated this surely from, original Latin that Vitruvius was writing in. And now, so then they translated it into the modern day English and they skipped over a thing, which is germane.
That makes sense too because Larinium is spelled Lari.
Yes.
And Larix is spelled Lari.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a funny story.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for those people though.
I know. What an awful tale.
Oh, surely, yeah. And once they surrendered, they probably, I would imagine that he's like, thanks for telling me what that is, and then killed them all.
I'm assuming so. Or maybe enslaved them into making weapons of war to continue his conquest.
More stakes.
Yeah. So that's the story of how the Larch got its name.
That is so fascinating. I did not know that.
There you have it. And Casey, more Larch talk on the way, but first, a quick break. We'll be right back with more Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Today, we are talking about Larix decidua, the European larch. Case, let's talk about the topic of the week.
Yes.
Regarding the Larix decidua.
I'm very excited about this.
Take it away.
So, remember how earlier I was telling you there was this fun idea that I had, and I was doing research for some other topic that we're going to do some other time. As I was doing that research, basically looking into deciduous trees and why, I ended up coming across some things where they just kept talking about the larch and its mushroom fungal associates.
Fungal associates?
That's right. Always the best.
Hey, that's from our show.
Exactly. I don't know how that got, dispersed into the scientific literature, but apparently people have been adding that back in revisionist style into, literally all the different, new studies that are coming out.
Be real with me.
Yeah.
Do you honestly believe that you coined the term fungal associates?
No, 100% not.
Darn it.
I'm sorry. No, one of my old bosses, I think, came up with that, or at least I heard it from him.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so this week, we were talking, and we've talked many times about fungus and fungal associates, but we kind of just hit on it one time. And we had it in a Patreon episode where we talked a little bit about soil and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we talked about specifically fungus there.
We had an episode called Fungal Associates.
Yeah, that's okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember that.
Yeah.
In this case, I wanted to dive into it and give a little context to everyone else in the world about what it is that we're talking about when we talk about mycelium and their relationship with trees, which is the mycorrhizal fungi. And there's been a bunch of new stuff. We were just talking a couple weeks ago, you and I, about Susan Simard's book that just came out. I think it's like Finding the Mother Tree.
Yeah.
And then there's also The Hidden Life of Trees, which is that book by Peter Wallenben, and it was a huge classic or huge hit. It came out and people were like, what? Trees? Tell me more. Because he basically was making a less than scientific assertion that trees can feel and trees have, sentient thoughts and things like this.
That was kind of a progenitor of like the new tree boom interest, right?
Yes, exactly. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
But basically, it worked out that all those different topics are really what they're trying to do. And this has been something that we've known about for literally decades. Like I have posted on our extra information a cool, I think it's a PhD dissertation And I was reading through it and I was like, this seems scientific, but it doesn't look scientific because it was written on an old actual typewriter.
Wow.
Click, 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 like that. And so I was reading through it and I was like, well, this is good. It's extremely outdated. But it served to show that we've known about the relationship between fungus and trees for decades. I think that was posted in the 40s, I think, when that came out. It was talking about citing articles from the 1914, 1922s, like, all the way early times where you think, well, we were, not really paying attention to this stuff. We were.
Wow.
Maybe we just didn't give it the credit that it needed. And then, World War II happened and we became, instead of like focusing on the world in the relationships about how the world works, we focused on agrochemicals. And we forgot about all this and we kind of just didn't focus on it. So now when Peter Wallenben and all these other people said, hey, actually, there's this thing, trees and fungus, plants and fungus, like this is a really important thing. That's when, just like you said, it hit the mainstream. So I want to dive into that a little bit and kind of talk about it in relationship to this larch tree, because the European larch grows and it takes where it grows up way high in the mountains. The larch over here that we have grows way up high in the mountains. Larches everywhere else, they tend to grow in areas that, for whatever reason, have more evergreen species.
Okay.
Well, these trees, just like everyone else, they have made these connections. And what I'm talking about is the mycorrhizal fungi, which are fungi, for those of you who may not be familiar with the term, that have a very specific connection with the roots of trees and other plants.
Right.
There's two main kinds of ways that these these fungus work. These fungi, gosh, I just can't get my words right. I'm just so fumbly.
It's okay.
Thanks, Alex. I like your support.
Should we take a big breath?
Okay, well, let's try it.
Okay.
So the ecto and endo mycorrhizal fungi, these are the two ways, or the two kinds that we really discuss. So one, endomycorrhizal fungi, which is a fun word, those are the kinds of fungi that grow into and put actual, they're called arbuscular roots or arbuscular things. And they actually have little bits and parts of their mycelium that go into the actual cells of the plant's roots.
Okay.
Very scary to think about.
Yeah, that's very parasitic.
Yes, exactly. Except they don't take more than what they do. So the tree and the fungus, over however millions of years of evolution, you just gotta like, your mind has to really like, wow, that has to take so long for a relationship like this to develop.
Yeah.
It goes into the roots and the actual cells. That's called endomycorrhizal fungi.
Okay.
And then there's ectomycorrhizal fungi. And that just builds this sheath and just kind of goes around the root and then kind of goes into the intercellular section. So they go between the cells, but not actually into the cells.
Okay.
And generally speaking, there are two different, like most land plants and things that are in the Cupressaceae, they will have endomycorrhizal fungi. But then like 10% of plants will have the ectomycorrhizal fungi.
I'd like to point out very quickly.
Please do.
For the etymology heads out there, endo, of course, we use for endoscopy. I'm most familiar with, meaning within, or inner, or absorbing, or containing. So
yes.
Endo, and then ecto, what?
I believe it just means the opposite. It means on the outside.
That's
not necessarily
right.
Within.
Outer, external, on the outside, like ectoplasm.
Yes, exactly. So thank you. That's exactly right. And that's how I've always remembered it, is just that endo feels like it goes into something. Ecto is just the opposite of that, which means it's on the outside.
Fantastic.
So that's exactly right. But what's unique about this is that all the pine family trees, they all have that ecto, including the larch. So they're in that small 10% that has this ectomycorrhizal fungi relationship. Now, I couldn't find for sure if it's all that way or if they have some that go in, some that go out, because generally you have fungi that are specific, or a fungus that is specific to a tree species. This species will always be with this species. You know?
Okay.
So it's another thing, kind of like the wasp and the fig. Yes.
That's the first thing I thought of.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you're on. That's exactly the same thing. I'm so happy that connection was made.
It's like a species to species relationship.
Exactly. A specialization, to the extent where if one dies, the other dies too.
A specialization.
Oh, Alex, get out of town.
I'll see myself out.
Yes, thank you. The specialization is lovely, but then at the same time, you really hem yourself in. Where what if it's not even what if a big a beetle outbreak comes, kills all the trees around you? Then you could have like a localized extirpation where all those in this area, there's no fungus. But if there's no fungus there, then the trees can't grow back there either, or at least they really, really struggle. Now, Alex, this is because if you are a tree species and you're growing somewhere, you do not have the time grow near as well without your fungal associate.
Okay.
To the extent where sometimes you will even die. Like you just won't be able to live.
Wow.
The trees will not survive. They won't grow up tall. They'll immediately get shaded out by something else. They'll die of water stress. They'll get too hot. They'll get poisoning from something. They'll get another fungus that comes in and attacks them and they die from root rot. This happens all over the place. So if you don't have the fungus, then you don't have the tree. If you don't have the tree, then the fungus also won't be there.
So the implication here, you're talking about like planting trees in different areas?
Exactly. There's a quintessential example of planting larch and other species of tree in, say, from the UK.
Okay.
And then planting that over in Australia or New Zealand.
Sure.
Where they work, like the climates for all intents and purposes are exactly the same. But the tree species in one place has this native fungal association throughout the soil. It's just there. And as soon as you take that and grow it somewhere else, it doesn't have that same fungal network that's already present in the soil. So it can't plug itself in and it ends up dying.
Home is really where the heart is.
It is. It's just so true. With the larch, I found a study that said that there were 22 different species of fungus that were associated in an ectomycorrhizal connection with a bunch of different larches in two different kinds of forest.
Okay.
Like a small plantation and a big plantation with like older trees.
Okay.
And there's differences on the soil. So of course you would expect there'd be different fungus that are better at different things in different parts of the world.
Oh, wow.
Or in this case, just different soil types, different parts of the mountain. And so they were like, well, if you're in this part, then you're going to have all of these fungus that are going to do really well, that they're specialized in this soil type with this amount of water, this other thing. And then over on the other side, you have a completely different soil type. So you have a bunch of different fungal associates that you connect into. And it's literally the same as like Avatar or something, where you pop that tree in the ground where that seed lands and it sends out its little roots. And then it literally, like I know I say this a lot, the word literally. This is a literal connection to a network. Like you plug in your Ethernet cable, then all of a sudden you're online and you can do anything. You can see the world.
Yeah.
There's a great book that I want to recommend that everyone look at, especially if you're into comic books, most especially if you're into really good comic books. It's called Science Comics, Trees, and I think it's like Kings of the Forest or something like that.
Huh.
And it's a fun comic book that surrounds the growing cycle of this little acorn. And the little acorn just kind of runs around, and it's kind of like lessons that the acorn is learning, but the rest of the forest is kind of telling it about it as it's kind of going through its day. My friend Dan Gleason got it and showed it to me, and I was like, whoa, this book is not only like fun and like easy to like, even a kid could read it and like completely understand everything about it. It's also like extremely scientifically accurate. Like they even use the term thigmotropism, I think, in there.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the way that they do it is you have like all these big trees that are around, and then you see this mushroom that pops up. And the mushroom's like, hey, little acorn, what's going on? And the little acorn's like, whoa, mushroom, I don't know, what's going on? He's like, wow, you just put your roots down on the ground right here and just log on. Well, so the little acorn just like sends down a root, or the new, I guess it's actually a little oak tree at that point. And I think it literally is like, treats it like a hand holding thing where like the fungus reaches its hand up and then they just connect it. Then all of a sudden the acorn all of a sudden like hears all these other different trees around it being like, hey, welcome. Hey, what's going on? Hey, it's good to see you. You know, it's like you're just literally logging onto a network and people say hi.
That's so interesting.
It's these big, massive old trees that send out all these big roots, and they are a system that's been running for literally hundreds of years. They have it down. Those big trees will then have fungal networks going out everywhere connected to a bunch of different other little trees and other species and other plants and other kinds of things as well. So the whole forest is like one big, gigantic connected network. I know we've said this 100 times. It's always worth repeating, but that big tree will help all the other little trees get connected and literally give them life and growth to sustain themselves.
The wood wide web.
That's it. Oh, the best non-pun there ever has been.
Hold on. I have an issue.
Speak it.
You call it a non-pun. You said at the time, Alex, it's not a pun.
It's not a pun.
It absolutely is.
I think it's a play on words because
it's a play on words, which is essentially a pun.
Oh no, because a pun is like specification. That's a pun.
Specialization.
Yeah, sorry, speciation. That's just a normal word. Yeah, that's when you take two words and you kind of mash them together and you create it in a fun, punny way.
Yeah.
Whereas the wood wide web is a web that is wood wide. It just sounds like you're not saying worldwide. It's the worst, but
makes my skin warm. It's at least pun adjacent.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, okay. I'll any day of the week.
It's under the punbrella.
Yeah. Well, that is, you're totally right. Remember when we talked about the Arbortraceae, the family that's in mostly the southern hemisphere?
Yes, of monkey puzzle fame.
That's exactly right. And people have wondered to themselves, why is there no monkey puzzle growing up here?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I read is that they have endomycorrhizal fungi, whereas up here we have much more pine species or things that are in the pine family that have the ectomycorrhizal fungi.
Okay.
So the theory goes that maybe we also have them in certain like the wetter areas, like pine obviously grows in some drier areas, but some people have postured maybe it's the fungus, which is why this tree grows here and other trees don't. This also came up with the Don Redwood.
Fascinating.
Larches are deciduous conifers growing way up here. Don Redwood clearly can take these conditions. Why is it not up here everywhere? The theory is maybe for whatever reason, its fungus got outcompeted by other fungi. That fungi then was more beneficial to pine family trees way back when. So overall, and this is again natural selection, where over millions and millions of years with different changing conditions, one just kind of slowly outwins the other. I'm sure there's 1,000 other factors, but
that's fascinating.
That is, yeah.
That's a factor I wouldn't think of.
Neither did I until it came up, and I don't even remember what I was reading about. I was like, that is very curious.
Yeah.
So the larch has these different things, and so it's plausible. However, like I said, I couldn't find anything definition on this. This is one of our 70% facts.
Sure.
It's very much plausible that the larch, because it can make so many different fungal associations, and then has taken a strategy of saying, well, I'm going to actually put all of my energy into being decay resistant and growing really strong, tall, and fast. Mm-hmm. But I'm not really going to put much effort into my leaves. I'm just going to let those fall. I'm going to take everything back in and I'm going to do my deciduous thing. Then it could be that because they have made these other connections, they're just out-competing everyone else because they made more friends.
Wow.
Who knows?
Casey, I think right now is a perfect time to get into our review of the Larch, the European Larch. You and I are going to give it a grade on a scale of 0 to 10 golden cones of honor. Yeah. This season, honor spelled HONOUR on our world tour. As our resident expert, we begin with you.
Oh, right. So we have a tree. It's a deciduous tree. It's a deciduous conifer. I like that. I specifically like, and I was talking to a coworker, and I was like, "What do you like about this tree?" And his response was, "Yeah, I like a tree that takes a unique route to do something." I thought that was kind of fun.
That is kind of fun.
I also like that apparently, according to Vitruvius, it is so it's a fire-resistant tree. I know that, at least for the ones that grow over here. I also appreciate that this tree is one of the older growing trees, apparently up to 1,000 years, which you know me, I like trees, I like superlative trees.
Wow, 1,000 years.
Yeah, they apparently counted one that was like 986 years old.
Shit.
So it's like, okay, that's old. That's a pretty good tree.
It's old as fuck.
And I like that it's a mountain tree. I like conifers that grow in the mountains.
Yeah.
I just think it's the most beautiful kind of tree. So I have to say, though, that it's a tree. It's been growing all over the place. It's a little bit invasive somewhere. So it's kind of like, well, you got to keep it together. But I like that it makes friends, Alex. I think it's great that this tree's like, you know what? I'm your buddy. I'm your buddy. I'm your buddy. I'm your buddy.
Yeah.
And then all of those fungus are just loving it. All right, 8.0.
That's a perfect grade for this tree, Casey.
I'm so happy you think so.
8.0 golden cones of honor for the European larch from dendrologist Casey Clapp.
That's what I think. Now, if you were to give, let's say, a rating between possibly 1 up to 10 cones, golden in color, honorable with an O and a U,
Yeah.
what would you do?
Well, I would first sit back and I would correct you that it's 0 to 10.
Wow.
Casey, I think the European larch is pretty darn cool.
Okay.
I got so excited when you said 8.0 because I was thinking in the 8 range.
Yeah.
I usually settle in the 7s somewhere for most things. Then every once in a while you get a 9 something, right?
Yeah.
Here and there a 5 something.
Yeah. We've all seen them.
Yeah. And I love that the larch, love the coniferous deciduator situation. I think that's great.
Deciduator situation. I like that.
Yeah. That's a Dr. Dog album.
Maybe their last.
I like a tree that gives back something to the people.
All right.
This one gives back something to the people and the birds and the bugs. I think that's just really groovy, man.
And fungus, but fungus are people too. We all know that.
That's right. Shit, I'm giving it an 8.0.
What?
It just feels right.
We're just doing it. That averages to 8.0.0.
It does.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where I land, and that's why I got so excited when you went 8.0, because I thought, that's it. It's an 8.0 tree.
We're of one mind right now.
We are.
It's like
please.
we're plugging into the network,
Yes.
Alex.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. This is why I grow my hair out, so I can push it into the plants and animals like an avatar and just understand them thoroughly.
That was our review of the European larch. A beauty, if I do say so, Case.
Please, because when you say it, I say it.
Casey, it's time for a game.
What game?
Well, I'll tell you this, Casey.
All right.
There is a 6th dimension, beyond that which is known to Alex. It is a dimension as vast as a forest, and as timeless as Gaia. It is the middle ground between trees and seeds, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of Casey's fears and the summit of his knowledge. It is an area which we call the Cone Zone.
That was so intense. I got goose pimples.
Wow. Really?
No, not really. I was just giggling over here and laughing.
It wasn't that good.
It was great. Did you hear that music?
Yeah. No, but we will. Casey, here's how it works.
All right.
You have closed your eyes.
They're
and
closed.
To your side are 3 cones.
They're always by my side.
2 of them are in jars and 1 is jarless.
The poor thing.
You will take the cones from the jars and you will feel them with your hands.
Okay.
You will describe to us what you're feeling.
Okay.
In great scientific detail.
It's going to be very scientific. It's going to be very detailed.
You will then guess which cone you have.
Okay.
For each one, you earn a point and a point of my respect.
Okay, that sounds good. I want the second point.
Okay, Casey, we
All
are
right.
entering the cone zone. Go ahead and open that first jar. It's in a spice. What is that brand? Spice Island?
Ooh, yeah, I think it's an old Spice Island one, yeah.
Yeah. Possibly nutmeg. It housed nutmeg at one point.
It's very possible. Ooh, can I get it out? All right, I got it out. Okay. Oh, God. Okay, so it's tiny. All right, so I'm feeling a little cone. It's maybe about an inch tall. Mm-hmm. It's very woody. It doesn't bend a lot, but it feels like there's a bunch of little cone scales. They're very smooth, and there's no points on it. Like it's not offensive to the touch.
Ooh,
I would say.
a great clue.
Let's see. It's got a little. Okay, so I think this is in the pine family. The reason I think that is because it grows off and it kind of has this central sort of stem, and then I can feel that there are cone scales coming out from either side of it. And using my imagination, I can feel that they're spirally arranged.
That was my next question.
That tells me that it's probably in the pine family.
Okay.
And judging by the space between all of the cone scales, I think that it must be something specifically in the genus Pinus.
Okay.
Very specifically, because most of the other ones would have more scales; they'd be more tightly packed. On the one exception I can think of would be a hemlock, but a hemlock cone scales would be really, really. They wouldn't be as tough and woody. They wouldn't fight with me.
There'd be more papery, perhaps.
I would say, yeah, a little papery. They would just bend a lot more. You know?
Okay, so this one's a little stiffer.
Yeah, it's a lot stiffer. Like I can't bend it, and if I do push on it, I feel like I'm going to break it, and that causes me a significant amant of anxiety. Therefore, I won't do it. I also feel that there's a little stem. I can feel where it broke off from its peduncle, which I think is what they would probably call it, and then it's kind of like immediately twisted around, almost like the cone was angled exactly backwards on the stem.
Wow.
Or potentially exactly forward on the stem. But generally, they don't grow like facing upright unless they're a larch, as we talked about before.
Oh, so you're saying maybe this grew parallel to its stem.
Yes, precisely, in one direction or the other. And sometimes, depending on certain species, you can tell the difference by species if it goes backwards or goes forwards, or if it has like maybe 4 or 3. But because this one is so small, this could be... if it was a little bit bigger, a little bit tighter, and had more cone scales per area, then it may be a shore pine. However, because this one is a little bit smaller, but it does the same thing as a shore pine, my bet is it's something that's very closely related to the shore pine, but from the East Coast called the jack pine.
Wow, Casey.
Pinus banksiana.
Please open your eyes and tell us what you read on the label.
Oh, it's a jack pine.
Nice.
Oh, man, that's a jack pine.
Damn, man. That's a jacked pine.
I think these things are so cute.
Casey, well done. It is quite a cute cone. Yeah.
I think I'm going to get it tattooed on me.
Oh, nice.
Don't tell anyone.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Tell Sean Hebrink.
Oh, you're a tattoo artist.
Yeah, he's the best.
Nice.
Yes! Oh, I'm
well
so
done,
stoked I got
Casey.
this one. Okay.
1 point and 1 point of respect goes to you.
All right. I'm going to count that as a win.
Casey is rejarring the cone.
It has been rejarred.
I'm reaching for cone number 2.
Cone
Casey.
number 2. Okay, I am seeing that this is a larger jar. Okay, reaching in, getting this out.
Casey, what are you reacting to?
Oh, it was a little pokey at the top, but I don't know if it was actually pokey or if it was just kind of pokey. Ooh, it's also falling apart a little bit. I feel little bits that are coming out.
I'll tell you this much: you're getting seeds all over my couch.
Yeah, hey, listen, this is for art. All right, I'm pulling it out gently because I have a sneaking suspicion. I think I know what this one is.
A tight fit, I would say.
It's a tight fit. By Jove, it's a tight shave.
You did that so slowly.
Thank you. It's very patient. These are my babies.
Never seen you move so slow.
All right. So what I'm feeling right now is a very tightly packed thing. It feels like it's dry, but it used to be thicker and heavier. And it is very, very uprighted. So the cone, as you sit it upright, usually you think of cones that they hang down. This one, based on how the cone scales kind of swoop down a little bit, I think that this is in fact also in the pine family because it has that same kind of big, tall, elongated shape, which tells me there's probably that central axis with spirally arranged things on it. However, cone scales, I can't feel that there is a distinct spiral on this. And I can't feel any separation between the little cone scales.
Yes.
Which tells me that this one is probably still closed up. There's one very specific thing that I'm feeling, Alex. I'm sure you've noticed. It has these little bracts that are popping out.
I also want to specify for the listener that this cone is about 4 inches tall.
Oh, I should have noted that. Yeah. It's about 4 inches tall.
Maybe a couple inches wide.
Yeah. And it's very barrel shaped,
yes.
I would say. This is a noble fir.
All right, Casey, open your eyes and read the tag, which I believe is in the...
Abies Procera, the noble fir.
There you go.
Oh, I'm so happy about this.
There you have it.
Yes. Oh, man, I'm on a roll.
Okay, Casey, 2 for 2. Cone number 3.
Cone number trace.
Let's see what we have. It is a jarless cone. It is
Ooh,
it is
a jarless.
Naked as the day it was born.
Oh, God. Okay, so this one, it's about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches tall.
Yeah.
It seems woody, but at the same time, it kind of moves a little bit, you know?
Pliable.
A little pliable. That's a perfect term. Okay, so, but it feels pliable, but also still feels very close. This is a conundrum. This one makes me think. Okay, so it also has this little nub on here. It has a little tip. So there's that. Okay, so it's in the pine family because it has that same spiralness to it.
Yes.
Pretty positive. However, the cone scales feel like they're really close together and they generally would be kind of always closed. So that tells me that it might be one of those serratinous kinds which has like the fire dependent. This one, however, is much smaller, and you can kind of move those cone scales around really easily. So this one's probably been drying out for a long time, so it's opened up a little bit. But if this is the cone that I think it might be, which is a species that has 5 needles per fascicle, that is what they call a white pine, or in the white pine sort of subgroup. And those generally, like the eastern white pine, also the sugar pine, they have these really big, like kind of flowy scales that are really kind of malleable, like you can move them around a lot.
Yep.
The difference between that one and this one is that this one goes really, really, really high up in elevation, like almost the highest you can possibly get, at least around here. And it has all of its cone scales stay really tightly packed. This, I think, is a white bark pine, Pinus albicollis.
Casey, open your eyes.
It is. Yes. Oh, it looks like a dragon to me. Like a dragon's like, I don't know. It looks something that has to do with dragons.
It's quite draconic.
Yeah, that's exactly it. White bark pine.
Well done, Casey. 3 for 3 in the cone zone. And I chose that cone for the last one to transition into a plug for our Patreon.
You're kidding me.
Because if you sign up this month, June, you will receive a white bark pine cone sticker next month.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I want one of those, Alex. I'm going to sign up.
A real pine cone.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real pine cone pine.
Yeah. Well, Casey, congratulations. 3 for 3 in the cone zone.
I'm floating on air right now.
Casey, it's time for our completely arbitrary Q&A.
Oh, right.
Our question this week is from Liberty Juno.
Hello, Liberty.
Hey, Juners. Liberty asks, is there any background to how landscapers choose trees for certain settings? I'm in Universal Studios right now, and in the Jurassic Park part of the theme park has such awesome trees that truly remind me of the dinosaur age. Casey, I know the answer to that question essentially is yes, but I'd like to talk a little bit about how to choose trees for certain settings and certain moods and vibes and practical purposes.
Interesting. All right. Well, this is a very fun question. So of course you already answered the question. Yes is obviously the answer.
Yes.
But it's kind of a curious idea with that, is that no one knows what it actually looked like, right? We just have an idea based on what was there and like climactic things that we can look at.
Oh,
you're
talking the Jurassic Park era.
Yeah, okay. yeah. I mean, almost any time more than 10,000 years ago, we're kind of guessing, you know?
Casey, let's do it like this.
Yeah.
I am opening a Renaissance fair.
Oh.
Okay?
All right.
And I want a central courtyard.
Uh-huh.
And I am going for a sort of medieval Central Europe thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Think 1300s Central Europe.
Okay.
What kind of trees do I want to put in this courtyard? And keep in mind, I'm building this in Oregon.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe northwestern Oregon.
Gotcha. Okay, so what you would want to do is you'd plant probably a kind of tree that grows there now, because medieval Europe 400, 500 years ago, it's still relatively the same.
Sure.
In terms of trees.
Yeah.
So you'd plant lindens, you'd plant oak trees, you'd plant elm trees, and you'd plant a couple different kinds of alders, and you would hack each of them all the time, and you'd have some really, really big, gigantic ones that no one's ever touched.
Hack?
Yes, like cut it down or cut the top off and then let it grow back, and then cut it off, then let it grow back, and that kind of thing.
Just to get it gnarly looking?
Not necessarily gnarly looking. What they did is they did something called coppicing back then.
Oh, we've talked about this.
Yeah, where they would top off or cut the trees. You called them knobby boys? What did you call them?
Oh yeah, stubby boys.
Stubby boys, yeah. So they would cut the top off of a big branch, maybe use it for firewood. They would grow back and have big leaves, and they'd put a bunch of energy into growing big new shoots. They would cut those shoots off and feed it to their animals, or use it to build a basket, do anything that they needed with that nice long shoot. But then the tree would just keep doing that over and over and over.
So you're saying do that to sort of mimic how it would look in 1300s England.
Exactly.
Got it.
So if you were doing that, you would just basically look and imagine what that place would look like, plant those trees. So lime trees is what they call them over there, lindens or tilia. We would plant those over... You would want to plant those because those were super common, like in Germany. You would want to have trees that produce something. Chestnut trees are a great example. People would always, like the roasted chestnuts, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Elm trees, because they just grew up all over the place, and so they would use those often. Ash trees. But then you'd also have big oak trees. But oak trees were like the big, that's a massive, gorgeous tree.
So maybe a centerpiece tree could be an oak tree, or what do you call it?
Center of the courtyard, a specimen tree.
Specimen tree.
Yeah, and that's because that's where everyone would go and sit went underneath when they did their festivals or they
Yeah.
had their weddings, and then they would like string lines from it, and then they would hang their clothes and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So there was lots of different options that you do, but they'd have these big trees that they had because they revered them and they thought they were good trees and they meant something.
What if I wanted to kind of fill out the landscape with some bushes? What time era appropriate bushes would I want to go for?
That's a good question.
I'm off the top of my head. I'm like, I want some holly plants.
Yeah, you'd probably get some holly. You'd probably get some other smaller shrubs, some hazels, some hollies. I'm sorry, hawthorns, things like that. A lot of H's.
So is it fair to say that when you're a landscape architect and you are asked to design a space,
Yeah.
that you are also like kind of like thinking about where the sun is during certain times of the day, how many people are going to be around this, how much maintenance it's going to take to upkeep this zone?
Totally, most definitely.
Okay.
You'd be thinking about that, and you'd also be thinking about where you want those people to go, or if you want them to stay or go, or
sure.
things like that. Build basically a room or a hallway.
Yeah, we talked about Japanese gardens at
Yeah.
one point, famously awesome gardeners.
Exactly.
And like controlling the flow of traffic with the trees.
Yes,
That is so
precisely.
cool, man.
So, but then you'd also have to say, well, if I want a tree to be here, I need enough space for that tree to grow.
Oh.
So you have to think, well, it has to have enough underground space for the roots, and it has to have enough overground space for the tree to grow up. Or if you plant a big tree and you want a smaller tree on the other side, you better space it so that the sun is going to hit the smaller one and then the bigger one, rather than the opposite way around.
Clever.
Yeah, so you do have to take all those things, at least a good landscape architect or a good garden designer would come up and think about all those things.
So if you want to be a landscape architect, are you studying landscape architecture in school?
Theoretically, yeah, that would be
Okay.
what you do. But you can also study garden design. And honestly, the big difference between, say, garden design and landscape architecture would be the landscape architect is also designing the landscape itself. They would say, we're going to build a pathway. We're going to add a gigantic berm over here. Like they're going to be doing everything from start to finish. You could have a blank piece of land and they will add the rocks. They will move this over here, move
Right.
these things, and like add these elements into it more than just a plant.
Like terraforming the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Versus a garden designer would say would be not necessarily mutually exclusive to these sorts of two big things. They would also say, well, we have a hill over here. What grows good on a hill?
I see.
We have a flat area, or we have a depression here that has has water in it. What likes all these different microenvironments, and how can we build a garden that encompasses all those without working against it?
Interesting.
That's what I think makes a beautiful garden and a beautiful landscape, is that if you don't just absolutely cut it all down and make it all flat and then add things to it, use what you have and then use those elements to actually create this space.
Very cool.
And then, of course, take into consideration all those other things about what you want it to be. So,
Yeah.
it becomes very complicated when you add that next person level onto it. Even more so if you're trying to turn it into Jurassic Earth many years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
This topic, it's Casey. When I get interested in something, I think you probably know this about me. I become a bit obsessive, and I get the little spark.
Hey, you've been making a lot of chocolate chip cookies lately, Alex.
It's not true. Although I did just make pita bread for the first time. And
wow.
Anyway, I'm like a little bit interested in landscape architecture. I
Oh,
think.
man,
And like
yeah.
why and like how to design a space. Like it's like interior design, but it's exterior design.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We should definitely go out and look at some gardens and talk about it.
Cool.
I have an idea for some places we can go. Maybe we can talk about it sometime.
Fantastic.
Love it. Thank you for the question.
Liberty, thank you so much. Obviously, a very provocative, good question.
Very nuanced, and there's a lot of different ideas of what's good and bad. It's all in the eye of the beholder. However, I don't necessarily believe that is the case. I think we've just been taught that.
Loving it. Mm-hmm. If you have a question about trees or other related topics, email us at arbortrarypod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at arbortrarypod. That's ARBORTRARY pod. Or support the podcast if you love it and you want it to keep going on our Patreon, patreon.com/arbortrarypod. We have a lot of fun things happening there. Bonus episodes and Cone of the Month Club, where you get a unique cone sticker illustrated by a wonderful artist every month. You're not only supporting us, you're supporting the arts.
It's the best.
Casey, a pleasure.
Always my pleasure as well, Alex.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I liked this episode.
I love the cone zone.
Maybe we'll return to the cone zone someday,
I hope so.
if we can find it. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Completely Arbortrary. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Au revoir.
Completely Arbortrary is produced by Alex Crowson and Casey Clapp. Our production consultant is Olivia Frankie. Our artwork is by Jillian Barthold, and our music is by the Mini Vandals. Thanks for listening.